Good evening. Welcome to Focus on Liberia. I'm the West African correspondent, Amara. Welcome to the current event shows where we come to you with the latest development of the continent. We analyze this event and tell you their implication on the continent. It is unfortunate and quite amazing that most of the news handpicked across the continent have dire implications on ourselves, on the continent, on our reputation, internally and externally, and Africa have definitely been suffering from a lot of upheaval. I think since 2020 up to this stage, Africa have never registered anything positive from the like of COVID-19, coup d'etat, demonstration. In fact, almost everything has just been happening. Although we can still feel and think that we have registered certain milestones, and that milestone maybe have helped us to be united as a person, maybe prevent some amount of conflict. And also we have seen some peaceful democratic change of one government to another. And we have also seen the violation of constitution, military coup takeover, and all of these things. So it is unfortunate and quite amazing that when we watch at the continent, the way the continent has been and how the continent is settling itself, sometimes somebody we just watch at it. Is Africa actually developing, or do we have strategies that is still setting up that? What have we learned since the days of independence? Because at almost what happened from the very day that we are learning about democracy, and with the longevity of how, or with the long stay of democracy on the continent, many people might have thought that I think Africa have developed from one stage to another. But unfortunately, the apprentice of the West, those who actually inherit the leadership from our colonial masters, actually continue to live into that same vein. And it is only few continents on the few countries on the continent that have managed to transform themselves positively. When you watch like what used to happen into the north we have the dictatorial regime where they do not actually embrace democracy, and some amount of development was actually taking place in the northern part of Africa. But those development we are definitely not sustainable. Reason being, they were being developed by dictators. They were like benevolent dictators. Maybe we may have a kind of generation like the one inspired by the 2011 Arab uprising or demonstration, which resulted into the collapse of all the development that actually took place into the north. And today they are being rated as one of the least peaceful countries on the continent. We have seen what happened into the south. In places like South Africa, of course, they tasted apartheid for over 100 years of apartheid regime. They were being led by, because I can rate it so, they were being led by just my minority group. But since Nelson Mandela took over in the early 1990s, he came, applied justice, or maybe it's a reconciliation without justice. And when he left, unfortunately, they have never lived up to expectation. And we have seen proliferation of arms into the country. Still, the mentality of apartheid continued to exist. Of course, the deprivation the blacks suffer did not actually, it did not stop. We are still seeing that the things in South Africa are still continuing to that strength. Of course, the like of Thabo Mbeki, who succeeded him, was actually ousted out of office, not through military means, but he was recalled by the ANC party. And we also saw that same strain went into the way of Jacob Zuma. And now we are seeing another Cyril Ramaphosa when Ikolama Dlamini Zuma has wanted actually to take over, but she never succeeded. And we also experienced certain changes in a situation like what happened in Zimbabwe. Look like Robert Gabriel Mugabe. Many of us thought that, okay, Gabriel Mugabe was a very good leader. Arguably, he was a very good leader. But when you watch at it, he was actually a leader in terms of controversy. He was a war leader. But Gabriel Mugabe, or Robert Gabriel Mugabe, was never any person, or he was not the type of leader who can live under normal circumstances. That was why even when he took over power, he still continued to apply that draconian mentality. At the end of the day, Zimbabwe was being abandoned. And Zimbabwe never, because the land grabbing system, never succeeded. Although it succeeded, but it waved away the white within the countries, and still we are seeing how that particular country is crippling. When you go into places like Somalia, since the 1990s, Somalia have been fighting war. You come into places like Angola. Angola has some sustainability, but Eduardo dos Santos corrupted the country. He plugged the oil resources that he gained, tried to create a type of nepotism system. He was listen. We saw how he's enriched his family. Even the man who succeeded him has resulted into what? Arresting some of the kids or his children, and also like Isabel dos Santos, who is termed as Africa's richest lady, is also under inquiry. When you watch like Denis Nguesso, who is in Congo Brazzaville, since 1980 he has been in power. What does he want to do? We don't know. You see, like since the fall of Mobutu, we are in the Democratic Republic of Congo. We saw the like of Laurent Kabila, then Joseph Kabila also coming into power. So all of these things are just there. They are creating series of problems. Look at the M23 rebels into the Congo. When you watch at this thing, you see like Uganda, since 1986, Yoweri Museveni came into power in Uganda, and he said he was against those who we actually stayed into power for quite a long time. Unfortunately, he still implemented the same agenda that is criticized. So all of those things are there. Then you see the like in Cameroon since 1976. Say year 76, Pobia has been into power. He does not want to leave power. You watch like this guy who is in Equatorial Guinea. Since he has been there in power, Theodore Obiangwema has been in power for quite a long time. He does not even want to leave power. So when you watch all of this situation, funny that it's an insult on the continent. Then look at like what is happening in Ivory Coast. Of course, this the like of Alassane Ouattara. We saw the demonstration that went on. He stole himself into power. When he won the election, people said it was Gbagbo that won. That resulted into demonstration. Gbagbo went into the Hague. He was being released. Alassane Ouattara has committed another constitutional coup. Today is in power. It was the same constitutional coup that led to the overthrow of Alpha Conde. Now look at in the Western Sahara, or in the Sahel into West Africa. In the Sahel region, you watch at the like of Niger, Chad, Cameroon, because Cameroon is just closer part of the Sahel, although it is not too much involved, but they are very close to the Sahel, of course. Nigeria is not a Sahel country, but very close to the like of Niger. You see like the like of Mali, then even Sierra, that is a Central African Republic. All of those things are there. These countries are never peaceful. So when all of these things are happening, is Africa learning, or have African lands? No. Did we do, or are we actually doing anything good with our democracy? No. All of these things are so bad, and we really don't know what is happening into our region. Sometimes we start. Today we have certain major programs or news that we are definitely going to analyze, which are so important to us, and we have to discuss them. First, let's come into East Africa. South Sudan, not ready for elections, according to the UN. South Sudan, not ready for election. The youngest country on the continent, not ready for election. TikTok suspended in Senegal. It has been accused of maybe being the sole medium that is capable of broadcasting hate speech. Then Kagame appoints his daughter in a key government post. Then also pressure intensified on the junta in Niger as Nigeria cut down its electricity supply to Niger. Pressure is now on the junta regime. Nigeria cut down electricity supply to Niger. Then let us see also Somalia apologizes for feeling slow sprinter. I think there is a kind of sprinter or spotlight that is going on into China and in Chindu, where Africans have been represented. But you know the corrupt nature of an Africans. Even when they are not qualified to take part in a particular sprinter sport, they will still get you involved, maybe in one or two return. So all of those things which serve as an insult and maybe term the government so irresponsible. We don't know what the sport minister did, and those who are responsible for those sporting affairs on the continent, which also show an insult to Africa. Let's see. South Sudan, Salva-Kiir and Riek Machar, they are ulterior. I think when you watch at the Sudan, almost the Sudans, When I'm saying the Sudans, I mean Northern Sudan and South Sudan are being led by controversial figures. And because of their mentality, they have never solidified anything. We saw when John Garang lost his life in the fight of this same South Sudan. Then South Sudan, the youngest country on the continent, it became independent in 2011. This is the 12 years, the youngest country on the continent. Now we are seeing Riek Machar and Salva Kiir as president and vice president, but they have never been able to work out things. In South Sudan, foreign armies are more than the national army. Clientelism is the order of the day. Women have been raped, tortured, the oil resources are plundered. And we are now seeing a situation where the government concentrates more in trying to create a militia that will protect a clandestine interest because they came with the ulterior motive. They are not patriotic. In the name of protecting their ego, trying to fortify themselves into power instead of protecting the common South Sudanese. Now, look at the situation in North Sudan. And South Sudan's survival depends on the oil. Unfortunately, in North Sudan, we are having conflicts taking place between Al-Buhan and Hamditi or Dagalo. South Sudan is now worried. The deteriorating situation into North Sudan and it not being prepared to undertake general election. The election have now been postponed to December 2024, according to the UN. Financially, they are not prepared. Economically, it is not strong. And even security-wise, it is not organized. Because you are having Salva Kiir and Riek Machar always at their own, fighting themselves. And we are having other international interests who found themselves within South Sudan, but they are not interested in trying to protect the nation's national interests. Because they know the more the country's security situation deteriorates, the more the benefits. When there is peace, they wouldn't survive. So all of this situation is creating panic, and the UN has warned that the South Sudan is definitely not ready to undertake any election this year. And they have actually slated the time for the 24th of December in 2024. But is that possible? We are yet to see. Jerome Gayan says, I can't wait to this update. There is a lot going on in our region. Absolutely, a lot is going on in our region. And we get the latest from this particular program. So let's see. In Senegal, Ousmane Sonko, the opposition leader and the mayor, whose candidacy have been banned, his political party suspended because he criticized Macky Sall. Macky Sall came into office some years back. He is set to complete his term of office this year, and his 14 years term of office, 7 years per term, 14 years in leadership, is due to expire this year. He amended the constitution and turned it into a space of 5 years. He had wanted to run for election. Sonko came and verbally criticized him and created some vehement demonstration against his person. He has termed him as a social rebel, an inciter, a mobilizer of mob system into the country, and he termed him as somebody who is a threat to peace. It's a kind of Shanganiga attitude which should not be encouraged. Now, his political party has been banned, and he has been charged for violence conduct and the theft of arms, which he denied, and he claimed that these are all politically motivated. Now, TikTok has actually been banned into the country. The government said TikTok is being used as a platform where hate speech or speeches are being disseminated. And for them to fortify the country and to stop the spread or the dissemination or the circulation of hate speech, TikTok has definitely been banned. That is what they said. But people express their views. And our African government normally like to censor our opinion, to censor our view. I think opinion is like a birth certificate. Everybody is entitled to one. But in Africa, there is no entitlement to one's opinion. Each time you express your opinion, especially when you approach them radically and try to be so brutal with the truth, they rate you as a dangerous person and the government will come behind you heavily. So TikTok has been banned and people are complaining. The other time, Facebook or other social media networks we are down. Now the government has banned TikTok, claiming that it is being used as a platform where hate speech is being disseminated. And in the name of peace and sanity and progress of the country, the government has deemed it necessary to ban TikTok. But all is in the name of the arrest, detention of Usman Sanko. And Sanko is now calling on all political detainees to go on hunger strike to ensure that the government did not succeed in its nefarious move to create political instability on the continent. Let's come into East Africa again. Paul Kagame appoints his daughter as a director to a special in the presidential office, director of economic and financial board. And before this time, he has 3 of the kids who all hold strong government positions into the country. Accusation has been made against his person, and those accusations that have been made against his person that he has also developed a nepotist mentality where he has been appointing his kids or his children to influential government positions, and those things will lead to fortifying himself into power and to also create a family wealth. Paul Kagame is actually in good book of the West because he is one of the key front runners of women empowerment on the continent. His cabinet, around 80% of his cabinet members are females. But unfortunately, what is so weird, strange, or astonishing about his person is that the only female that he encouraged are those who support his political ideologies, those who are part and parcel of his party. We have seen how he has detained, tortured, and even jailed an opposition female candidate. So it's like only those who support his agenda are his female that is supporting. But the West, unfortunately, are applauding him. And they even made Rwanda to serve as an asylum country for those refugees who are seeking or who are running away, political and economic asylum seekers who are fighting to go into the West. And they are being deported and housed or hosted into Rwanda. But some security analysts in Africa are saying that could lead to the breeding of terrorism in that part of East Africa. Because people coming from Saudi Arabia, people coming from places like, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Syria, Iraq, places like Egypt, in places like Tunisia, in places like Libya, all of these areas, even in certain part of West Africa, who are seeking for asylum, they are being sent into Rwanda. And we are going to see an amalgamated generation of people living there. And most of those people have terrorist mentality. That can be easily used against Rwanda, and they may try to do other things. So they will actually warning them for Rwanda to be absolutely careful. These Westerners, they are so careful, they believe in using Africans as tools to ensure that they get their own ulterior motive. They have everything they can to host those people. Why is Rwanda welcoming them? And most of those who are being sent, do you see why? Watch at France. how France is being endangered, even Brussels or Belgium. You see how terrorists normally attack them? It is because they encourage those who are disciplined with different terrorist mentality to be coming into their country in the name of human rights and whatsoever thing. Now, most of those who attack, who kill, are not actually French citizens in time of, they are French citizen naturalization, out of naturalization policies. But most of those who are actually committing those terrorism act or terrorist act are actually North Africans or people from the Middle East. So Rwanda need to be very careful, or else we may end up to see Rwanda being another France where anytime terrorist act can take place. In Brussels, we have seen all of those things are happening. So we really need to be very careful if we are embracing any kind of development from those Westerners, because they are so cunning, they are so careful, they believe, and they know what they normally do to ensure that they create this type of situation, maybe that can only fortify themselves. Let's see. We are going to have a special report on the issue in in Niger. Let me give you the report. Okay. Niger coup, a litmus test for democracy in West Africa. President Bola Tinubu, who is at the helm of regional superpower Nigeria, regards the coup across the border in Niger as a litmus test for democracy in Africa. Having assumed the chairmanship of regional bloc ECOWAS as a mere three weeks ago, he was confronted with a major foreign policy challenge when the military seized power in Niger, a strategic ally in the fight against militant Islamic, wreaking havoc across much of West Africa. Mr. Tinubu had raised concern about the coups in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Guinea when he rose to Nigeria's presidency in May, saying ECOWAS needed to strengthen its regional forces to prevent further coups and to fight the militants, he stressed. So when Niger's president Mohamed Bazoum was overthrown by his presidential guards last week, he responded swiftly by convening a summit of West African leaders at his presidential villa on Sunday. The regional bloc gave an ultimatum to Niger's Junta: hand back power to the elected president within a week, or ECOWAS will take all measures necessary to restore constitutional order. Such measures may include the use of force, and military chiefs we are to meet immediately, their statement added. Though Mr. Tinubu's own victory in February presidential election is being challenged in the courts by opposition candidates who claim the result was rigged, he styles himself as a Democrat who took part in the campaign against military rule in Nigeria in the 1980s. I think he sees this coup as an affront to his democratic credentials, particularly at the time that he is holding the chairmanship of ECOWAS, said Wole Ajuwale, a Nigerian analyst with the Institute for Security Studies, ISS. More crucially, the coup has direct bearing on Nigeria. The two countries share a border which stretches from more than 1,500 kilometers or 930 miles. And they have strong cultural and trade ties that date back to the pre-colonial era when a chunk of both were part of the Sokoto Caliphate. Their security is also intertwined. Militant Islamic group Boko Haram has carried out attacks in both countries, with a military force made up of troops from Nigeria, Niger, Chad, and Cameroon fighting them. The force's strategic and technical partners include the UK, US, and France, with the latter two having military bases in Niger. While Niger accounted for about 14% of global uranium output in 2022, it is the world's seventh largest producer of uranium and has the highest grade uranium ore in Africa. Neither ECOWAS nor its Western partners would want the radioactive material used in both civilian and military settings to fall into the wrong hands in the region where militant Islamic are active, and Russia and the Wagner mercenary group are expanding their influence. After their coups, Mali and Burkina Faso pivoted towards Russia, with the junta in Niger given the impression that it could move in the same direction. Chad leader Muhammad Idris Deby Itno, who was put in power by his own army after his father was killed by rebel forces in 2021, went to Niger on Sunday to urge the junta to heed ECOWAS ultimatum. Chad is not a member of the regional bloc, but Mr. Deby attended its meeting earlier on Sunday. As a military strongman, he was seen as ideally placed to strike a rapport with the coup leaders and to urge them to step down, but the junta has so far refused. Instead, it has stepped its rhetoric against both the West and ECOWAS, and thousands of its supporters took to the street of Niger capital Niamey on Sunday to back the coup. Some of them attacked the French embassy and waved pro-Russian flags. But it is unclear whether the military takeover has majority support in Niger. More than half of its citizens were satisfied with the way democracy works in their country, according to a 2022 survey by respected research group Afrobarometer. In Africa, only Tanzania, Zambia, Sierra Leone, and Mauritania had better democratic approval of the 36 African countries surveyed. However, 2/3 of those surveys said that military men could intervene when elected leaders abuse power. This is an argument that those who mount coups, as well as their supporters, often make in order to justify their actions. The junta in Mali and Burkina Faso have warned ECOWAS against military intervention in Niger, saying it will be a declaration of war and they will come to the defense of their fellow coup leaders. So military intervention risks snowballing into a full-scale conflict. However, ECOWAS has previously sent troops to numerous countries including Liberia, Sierra Leone, Guinea-Bissau, and the Gambia, either to help end civil wars, reinstate deposed president, or to force out leaders who refuse to accept electoral defeat. These interventions were in accordance with its mandate to maintain peace, stability, and security within the region, though its troops were also accused in some instances of human rights abuses. Mr. Ojuwale is not sure whether the bloc has the military capability to intervene in Niger, a vast, arid country on the edge of the Sahara Desert, especially when many of the countries that make it up, including Nigeria, are facing their own security challenges. The little resources they may have been stretched thin, he said. The analysts believe that conflict between two sides could become a zero-sum game and worsen the humanitarian crisis in the region. There would be casualties and there would be people caught in the crossfire, he said, adding that a diplomatic resolution to this crisis would be better. There are also questions about the safety of the ousted president, who is being held captive by the junta. Another analyst, Jafar Abubakar, argues that he could become a bargaining chip in the event of military confrontation between ECOWAS and the junta. It is in the junta's best interest to keep Mr. Bazoum alive and well, he said. If they kill him, they become all-out rebels with no form of legitimacy. That was a special report given to you for the current situation in Niger. And unfortunately, Nigeria has cut power supply to Niger, and there is crisis of liquid cash into the country. The junta are being suppressed. And ECOWAS is threatening to take up military action. But watching at this situation, Nigeria the so-called big brother of Africa, is facing Boko Haram, ASWAP, internal banditry, and even demonstration in the capital city, in Yola, the capital city of Adamawa State. We saw demonstration against high rising of foodstuff into the country that led to the looting of shops into the country, which even forced the state government to declare a coffee hour, although the coffee hour was lifted. You look at Chad. Chad is facing rebellion. Benin is not safe because it is not worrying. In fact, Benin, as I said, there was a time that Kelly and I analyzed the security situation in the Sahel. Now, what's happening in Burkina Faso, in Mali, in Niger, Benin is not also safe. The president there is absolutely worried. Of course, Cameroon is facing a huge problem. Poor Kagame is so old, and sometimes even forget what to do. Nigeria is having serious problem with Boko Haram. Does Africa have that, or ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West Africa State, does it really have that financial power to undertake a military operation into Niger? I heavily doubt that. And that may plug the country into a series of troubles. And above all, the Wagner group is found himself into places like Chad, the Central African Republic, into Mali, and into Burkina Faso. Any attempt to wage war on Niger will escalate tension into the region, and it may have a spilling effect on almost every country. And it may even lead to the breeding of terrorism into those countries. Because when Niger become ungovernable, Niger may serve as a home or house for huge amount of terrorist affairs going into that part of the country. So we need to be very careful. And Nigeria has swiftly retaliated by cutting down its power supply to Niger. And before this time, when even fuel prices, when Bola Ahmed Tinubu withdrew the fuel subsidy into Nigeria, it had a spilling effect in Niger because they used to depend on what leaves from Nigeria. And the West, when you watch at this thing, I don't even believe that it is those Africans or our leaders who actually deem it necessary to attack Niger. It is the West that are pressurizing them. The Western countries are actually pressurizing them. If the West is not pressurizing them, they wouldn't have done that. Because the rest interest is into the uranium. And if they cannot have firm control over Niger, then those uranium will definitely drop into the hands of wrong people. And Russia, with a Wagner mentality, want to invade. But Prigozhin, he was the only Western prominent person that came out publicly to support the coup. Russia has not come out publicly, but we know it is hiding behind Prigozhin mentality. So all of those things, they are sad events, and as you heard from the report, it's really developing into that. And today, the military, in fact today, the former president of Nigeria, who was also Abubakar, who was also another military leader, met with others, and they actually went into Niamey to negotiate the release of Mohamed Bazoum and also a return of the country to democratic principle, which is military is definitely refusing, or they have refused, and they are threatening to retaliate in case they are attacked. And both Burkina Faso and Mali are saying that any attack or assault or military assault on Niger will be taken as a military assault on both Niger, Burkina Faso and Mali, and they will step in to help them militarily. They want to act like the EU bloc. An attack on one EU country is taken as an attack on the entire EU nation. So it is like a collective responsibility. Although Guinea did not subscribe to sending her military to fight in the name or on the side of Niger, but they have actually supported the statement given by both Burkina Faso and Niger, and Mali. And one, we are seeing a very, very sad situation on the continent. I think our African leaders need to display high level of maturity here and see how they can handle the situation. Because what is so funny again, how can AU attack? ECOWAS attack. Nobody is demonstrating against this military, the coup guys. In fact, the only protest demonstration that came in was when the ruling party house was attacked, looted, But nobody's actually demonstrating against the khaki boys. Then why launch an assault? Let them negotiate for the release of Mohamed Bazoum. And African leaders should start respecting the constitution. It's a very sad event. And our military boys should go back into their barracks. It's a call for concern for the region. It's a huge cause for concern, and we are tired with this type of mentalities that are developing across the country. Finally, we end in Somalia. Somalia has went with a kind of sprinter into China, where sport event is taking place. She could not even run for 2 minutes and she collapsed. That is what I can describe the situation with. It's a very sad event. I think they are saying that she wasn't qualified and they don't know how she was handpicked among others. And they are saying people who are physically and mentally fit should be the one. But the board of those that travel with them is definitely claiming that it is her first time participating into an event like that, and that might have led to maybe phobophobia, fear of peer, and that led to her not being able to soundly represent the country. But they have also apologized to the sport organizing body and also apologized to the Somalians. It's been me, Edward Amara, focused on Liberia, West African correspondent, coming to you with the latest development on the continent. Join me back on Friday, the same place, same time. Good night.